Hello and welcome to this episode. I fucked it up. Hello and welcome to this video on the Resto Wrestling channel with myself, Kieran, and of course Gareth here.
Yeah, hello, mate.
There's we're here. And we're going to be talking about a company we talk about each and every week, that we see each and every week, and that is AEW. And we're going to be talking about how AEW can improve for the next year, being 2021.
Yeah. We just did this. We just recorded this for NXT, and there was a lot. Obviously, we're bigger fans of AEW, so there shouldn't be so much.
Well, you say that, mate. We'll find a way. We'll find a way. So yeah, in this video, we're just gonna be outlining the topics that we feel AEW could improve on for the next year. As Gareth just briefly touched upon, we are big fans of it. We watch it on a weekly basis. Been devoted in that regard since day one. So we've seen most of AEW. I say most. I think we've seen all of AEW Dynamite. I think we can comfortably say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
any criticism we have, I think, of fairly well founded. We're not talking about anything that we don't know about. We know what we're talking about here. Not to bigger boots or anything, but it's just like we've seen it. So with
but
that
equally
being
as well,
yeah.
we won't just because it's a show we like. You know, if there's a criticism to be had, we'll criticize it, and we always do that.
Oh, we're happy
because we're just negative.
We're
apparently.
negative Nellies, mate. We're Nellies, mate. So let's touch upon a topic that's been well talked about, even on this channel, and Gareth is already just losing the will to live, because at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like things are going to be getting much any better, even since we last posted that video. Obviously, and people have been talking about it for months, the better part of a year for the most, and that is the women's division. Women, mate. Women.
We talk about this pretty much every live stream we do. If you don't know, we watch AEW on a live stream every week live, and every time it's a women's segment, pretty much we'll talk about that was really good. I wish they'd given more. Blah, 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 blah. Any kind of problems, we'll touch on it at least. I think we've done 2 videos talking about the women's division. I've written 2 articles about the women's division. I'm sick of talking about it, but until it improves, it will continue to be a topic of discussion. You can't have this discussion of how AEW can improve in 2021 without talking about this, because it's their biggest weakness. It's not even close. It's not even close. It's the worst. It's like one of the things that annoys me in wrestling the most, just their women's division. And I mean, where do you start? I've spoken about this so often. The talent, they've got a good amount of talent. Certainly enough to be doing a lot better than they are. I think the thing I always say is AEW could never have a women's division, let's say, as amazing as Impact Wrestling or NXT in terms of in the first year. We couldn't have expected that. But even so, it's not like, we spoke about NXT. It's not like their women's division is perfect. It's not like Impact have a perfect women's division. Like AEW could be a lot closer to them than they are, and in some ways could be doing better. It's just the simple things a lot of the time NXT forgets to do and stuff. So I feel like, even though, yes, I think it's unfair to say they should be on that level immediately, because obviously it's easy to go out and sign John Moxley, Chris Jericho, all this amazing world-class talent that wasn't available necessarily in terms of the women's division immediately, and the tag team division. We'll come on to that, but to expect it to be perfect, it's not fair. But I mean, yeah, I'm going to let you really get into this, because I'm kind of sick of talking about it.
No, that's fair. Okay, so let's talk about something very simple to start us off. There's a formulaic way that they've been dealing with women, and that is using them before the main event of the show. It's very much a thing that we're used to now, and we expect in a bad way. We hate it for the most part, because they very much place them they just place them in this position all the time. It's always about 20 minutes past the first hour. So you're about an hour and 20 minutes into the show, and it's before the main event, the thing that we build into, like a big old match. Maybe Cody Rhodes is there, maybe John Moxley's there, wherever it may be. And to be fair, the main events aren't always like the biggest match of the shows. To be fair, they always start off quite strong, and they'll have episodes where it might tip off at the end, which is really strange actually. But given they always throw the women's division in this position, and it never. I couldn't explain to you as to why, but they never really show the confidence to put them at the very beginning of the show, for example. At a point where it seems like you will get... They have a very... Sorry, let me just restart there. They start the show with very hot matches. Be that a tag match, Young Bucks Top Flight or something like that, or Young Bucks versus this thing, or Jurassic Express versus this team, or Best Friends versus this team, or maybe it's a singles match, and it's I don't know, Eddie Kingston, Cody Rhodes, or something. I don't know. They never show faith in that within the women's division, and I tell you what. Controversial, maybe, and maybe something, maybe not controversial. I always make it sound like a big deal, but maybe an unpopular opinion. Again, something people say too much on Twitter. But I don't believe personally that a lot of their women are that particularly great. Anyway, in the first place, or at least some of the side female talent that they have. So ones that aren't completely confirmed to be all elite, like the packaging that they have for their stars that are going to be there on a weekly basis. They're more the dark talent. They're more like your Diamantes, Ivalices, those talents. Like they don't do much for me. Big Swole is a fantastic. She's incredibly charismatic. One of the most charismatic women in all of wrestling for me personally. Like she oozes charisma and entertainment value and all these variety of things. But in terms of being in ring, I've always been left disappointed. And to be honest, and that's not necessarily because she wasn't given time. It's because
she's been given opportunities, sure.
Yeah, she's been given plenty of opportunities.
Diamante, Ivelisse, names like that definitely have been given the opportunities,
and they don't help themselves with talent like that. They don't, because I think at this point you need to, when you do show, because if you're going to give us one women's segment on a weekly basis, not only is that bad in itself for the starters, but it needs to be strong. Like it needs to be strong, and each and every time it's just not. And that's on the company, but I also think the talent
most times it's not.
I'm saying that most times. Like I'm generalizing. So it's just to point that out, because the thing is, I do have that opinion personally, but Hikaru Shida, we barely see her. Most passive champion on the planet. She's so
champions. In terms of in ring, amazing. In terms of booking, so bad.
What fucking champion just sits on the sidelines and just watches people and just looks at them and being like, hello?
It's got worse since then, though, with the whole Abaddon thing where she's actively scared of her, despite the fact she's already beaten her before. Like, AEW don't usually do stuff this bad, but they are insulting her intelligence with the whole Shida Abaddon thing. We haven't seen it for a couple of weeks or something, so I'm hoping they just dropped it, and maybe they'll just throw the match somewhere, and whatever. But Shida's character and or her booking, at least, like, her character is just a fighting champion. That's fine. She doesn't need to talk all that much. If you want to build a division around a competitive fighting champion, then do it. But don't have that fighting champion, her one characteristic, then carry away for a champion just because she has fake blood in her mouth. Because we all know it's fake blood, because zombies aren't real, and we all know that, and we're not stupid.
Yeah. It's kind of silly, but. Okay, so we see these talents now, and we see people like Abaddon and stuff, and Abaddon's a weird one, because I think if we had a fully fleshed out women's division, I think she could probably provide a bit of fresh air and providing something just a little bit extra on top of something. But I think given that we have a division that's very fragmented, very just not great whatsoever.
There's no structure. There's no structure whatsoever.
There's little to no structure. Having someone like an Abaddon doesn't help in that way, especially when you want to build a division based on characters and motivations and traits and all these variety of things, which is something that AEW has proven themselves to be quite decent at. Like, not amazing, but decent in the grand scheme of wrestling promotions. So I think having a zombie in your division and an alien And all these things, it's just like I don't think it helps. And
Yeah.
Chris Statlander is great. She's absolutely phenomenal, and she's one of the she's definitely like top three women in the company. Um, so, and it's really unfortunate that she was put to the side. What are you doing, Gar? But yeah, so like I don't think that helps. But so we see these
Mm.
people then, but then you've got talent like Tay Conti. You've got talent like
Yeah.
Anna Jay. You've got talent. I mean, I'm trying to really pull some names out of a bag here. Um, I
Yeah.
want to say there are a few. We've got obviously Britt Baker, of course. Britt Baker's been
I'll run
brilliant.
through, I'll run through a few names. Let's do this. I'll run through a few names who I think Dynamite ready and could be doing good stuff if they were given more. I know some of these might already be doing fairly decent stuff, but or being utilized enough. But I think Anna Jay, in terms of being a prospect, she's not going to carry a match. But if you put her in there with the right person, she's proven she can do really decent matches. And I think her what really impresses me about her is the way she carries herself. Just immediately makes me believe her. And she's learning very, very quickly. So I think the more you can make out of her, the better. Um, I'd say Britt Baker, obviously, in terms of her character, and she should be having things most weeks in terms of at least a promo or something like that. She should be the next champion. So building her for that. I won't mention people who aren't here at the moment, so people like Riho and stuff, just because we know how good she is, but there's only so much you can do with her. Hikaru Shida should be, a fighting champion, not a fighting champion who fights a lot, but a fighting champion who is actively a fighting champion, wants to take on the best challenger. It's a problem when you don't really have a best challenger because the rankings never change because the women never get any matches. But that's a different thing.
Oh,
Chris Statlander when she's back, she can be slightly comedic and stuff like that. The alien thing, as long as it's established, which I think it kind of is, that she's not an alien. In terms of in ring, she can put on these really good matches and stuff. She's not perfect, but she's really good. Nyla Rose, when used right, she should just be someone who is angry all the time, and when she loses, she reacts with anger and she dominates and stuff. She should be a monster, not someone who stands on the sidelines again. And we actively see her in the sideline crowd. She's one of the biggest stars in the division. You wouldn't see, I don't know, who's her equal in the men's division. You don't see Brian Cage still at one point you might have done, but now that he's been built up, you don't see Brian Cage stood on the sidelines with his arms crossed going boo to MJF or something, do you? So that's a problem. Penelope Ford, really good. Don't know why she never wrestles. I don't understand that. She's on TV a lot because Kip Sabian, for some reason, is constantly on TV. That sounds like I'm being mean to Kip Sabian. I'm not. I'm just saying that some of these women deserve the shot more than him. Serena Deeb, obviously, has a good match with pretty much anyone apart
I
from
love
Evilise and
Serena Deeb.
Diamante. Um, and she's
Phenomenal.
great. Shanna, for other reasons. And Tay Conti is someone I want to see more on Diamond as well. But there's enough names there that you can be doing a match here and there, and you can make enough out of that. It's not like NXT's women's division is much bigger than that, and you've got a lot of talent below that, like Big Swole and stuff, who can build up the numbers. Abaddon, people like that. If you put Abaddon in the right story and stuff, you can find the right spot. She's good because she's a decent, in-ring worker and stuff. I didn't mention Ali, who's also far from bad, and then you've got Jay Cargill, who we've not seen in the ring, but in terms of again the way she carries herself, really good and stuff. I don't know what she's like in the ring because we haven't seen her. But yeah, hopefully with the pandemic calming down in next year, that's the dream, isn't it? We'll see more of the Rihos and stuff like that. Yuka Sakazaki, I really want to see, but they have the talent there to do more. Basically, it wouldn't be perfect. You couldn't do as much as you're doing the men's singles division because it's just not as big and there's just not as many people. But it doesn't need to be a really boring tag match on a Dynamite with Evilise and Diamante versus Serena Deeb and Big Swole, where the match itself doesn't really serve a purpose. It's the post-match angle. You didn't need that. You could have done something better. You could have done something better. Equally with Britt Baker, this is just the recent episode that we've just watched, but Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, there was a great backstage segment where they did something, calling someone ugly, which you wouldn't do if it was men. that's a separate issue. But that was a good backstage segment. But why not have one of them have the match, cut a promo, and then you have it in the ring where it's more memorable, like so that you're getting them on TV. It's just these little things, like particularly last week, because a lot of the men's matches didn't seem like they needed to be there. They were there to kind of fill a spot. Why were the women still given 5 minutes? When you could have done something with Britt Baker, you could have done Britt Baker versus, someone, or you could have done Thunder Rosa versus someone, and only needs to even be a squash match. But then you get that match in, you get it on their record, you're getting them. We're becoming more and more familiar. That person on the other side of it gets a bit more experience in the ring, being on TV and working with the cameras, because those things do matter a lot. And more. But like I've spoken about the talent, Kieran. I wrote an article, 10 women AEW should sign, and there's a few names which I really want them to get in 2021 because they're available, basically. First one, I think it's quite an obvious one, is Thunder Rosa. I think her contract with NWA will end. She's going to be on Dynamite anyway, but I'd like to see her tied down. I'd like to see Alison Kay come in because she's a good. I don't know how good. I don't know if she's championship material. But again, we're talking about building a division and some structure. She's someone who can definitely like slot in there at very least and be equivalent to an upper mid carder. You got someone like Priscilla Kelly. For some reason, people are obsessed with this idea that because she's divorcing Darby Allin, they hate each other. They're still really good friends. It's absolutely fine. Darby Allin apparently doesn't really spend that much time in the locker room anyway. So, I can't really see there being an issue there. And she's really good. And we've seen her on AEW. She has a really good relationship with Tony Khan. Why hasn't she been signed? And then the final one, who I think would shift a lot, but I don't know whether she would, and I mean like eyes in towards AEW's way because of the way she left WWE, Zelina Vega, and the fans she has and how devoted they are. You're guaranteed at least 5,000 more people watching, and there's not very many people who can come in and do that, particularly in the women's division. But she's actually a really good wrestler as well. She's a really good talker. She's probably the only one who could really rival Britt Baker in terms of talking in that division. So that would be a really valuable asset as well. And yeah, I think those would be 4 really good signings that I'd love to sign. Is there anyone else or do you agree, or is there anyone else you'd like to add?
Unfortunately, right, we're talking about Dynamite Ready, right? And I'm sure in terms of, there's plenty of people out there that you could think that they one day could. There's a lot of people out there who are like, or one day could be talent. But I think the 4 that you put ahead are very strong candidates in regards to just coming in and immediately making a good to strong impact. Thunder Rosa, without doubt, is number 1. Not even women, just talent, all round talent. Just including tag team, male, executive, behind ball, wherever it may be. I don't care. Like in terms of hiring, she should be number 1 because she has made such an impact, and the fact, right, that she has got the spot that she has, right, considering she's not even really signed with the company, it goes to show her talents. It goes to show like how much of a pull that she has. And so just again, we're talking about impact here. People who are not impact the promotion. We're talking about impact in terms of their roles within the division. And I think she's got her character work down to a T. She's got her wrestling work under a T. She could do a phenomenal promo. She could easily have that championship and be one of the most entertaining parts of an AEW Dynamite on a weekly basis. She could easily do that, probably in her sleep. So absolutely. Alison Kay, I'm not familiar with her work, but I've heard so much that if you're going to be talked about a whole lot on social media, you've got to be doing something good. Priscilla Kelly, we've seen her on some sporadic occasions, one of which I believe was on the boat. I believe she had a match on the boat episode.
The Dynamite on the boat.
Dynamite on the boat. And she was great there. I remember being it, and I remember thinking to myself, "I'll be great if she was signed." And I was actually anticipating Priscilla Kelly is all elite, but I assume she's.
We all just thought she would be.
Yeah, but obviously, things just have yet to happen in that regard. And Zelina Vega is very much, obviously, this is a very relatively new suggestion given recent events, but it's very much a very logical one. We're talking when we talk about divisions. she's just, you've obviously got to mention character, and in terms of her, like
Yeah.
she can hold a phenomenal character, and a priority for Zelina is obvious. Like she gave up WWE because of her affiliation with Twitch and her love for Twitch and her love for streaming.
Yeah.
You've got, you've got a whole group of people on AEW who are doing the exact same thing. They,
Yeah.
which is why the whole Miro thing is weird to me, because people are complaining about Miro and like how he's being, and to be fair, they've got a point. He's not been handled, incredibly well, but
Mm.
for me personally, I just kind of like, as someone, as a talent, as a fan of him, I'm just kind of glad that he's happy. He's coming to work, he's
Yeah.
doing a bit of wrestling, but then he gets to do what he enjoys in terms of his streaming as well. So that's all well and good, and Zelina will get that as well. I'm very sure. Like
Yeah.
it's not even it's. I wouldn't be surprised if she does. Basically,
Yeah.
if she
She
does,
she tweeted out.
go on.
Sorry, you
No,
continue, mate.
no. That's my
Finish your
point.
point.
That's my point. That is my point.
Oh,
I
okay.
just wouldn't be surprised if she does.
Well, she tweeted out something like, "Oh my god, the call I just had," and then just left it at that. And she's someone who's been very smart about, you know, how she tweets and stuff, because of the way she handled certain situations, obviously in WWE, not just even the whole Twitch third party streaming thing, but also just the stuff with the whole breakup with Andrade and Angel Garza as well. The way that all fell apart, and there were just a couple of tweets. I was like, you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing, and I kind of felt like, oh, I don't know how long she'll stick around. And then she started getting a push, and I was like, oh, maybe that's because she's, maybe it's because she tweeted these things, and maybe that's I don't know whether that's why she got the push or not, or whether that was always in the plan. But then obviously the whole thing with the Twitch came, and it's like the way she handled it all was all very smart. It's because she tweeted before that about it as well, and then it all came to a head. So I'm just hoping that little tweet is something, because I think you throw her in the mix with Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker, and then someone like Ashida, who is just someone who can get a great match out of anyone. The same with Serena Deeb. You've got like a lot of moving parts there, which can really do something. And whilst a lot of AEW storytelling in the women's division is it's something we'll get onto as well, but it's very tropey at the moment. There's not much depth to it, basically. It's just like, I've got a problem with you, or I want the title, or this or that. There's not really much to it, and in isolation, in here and there, that's okay. But in terms of when you're building a division, things like Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker and like their feud are the things that you want to see, because it's like, it's two people who both have likable and dislikable elements to them, and they're like characters with depth. One of them's a bit more on the face side, one of them's very much more on the heel side, but then still kind of like almost flirts with Tony Schiavone, who is like the most lovable guy. And so there's always like, it's not just like a black and white, oh, I'm bad, oh, you're good, So that's kind of stuff that they're kind of tapping into there is really good. And with people like Zelina Vega, if they get Thunder Rosa on more and more, these are the kind of people who can actually tap into that, and that's what I really want to see. So yeah, and again, they'll just help us establish the structure of the division. I feel like we've spoken about this women's division enough, though. I think everyone already has their opinions on it. Pretty much everyone's in agreement it needs to improve at the very least, even if you're in the realm of it's terrible or it's not that bad, but they do need to improve. Someone's on that spectrum. If you think it's fine, you're an idiot, basically.
Yeah,
I don't respect your opinion. How about that?
Selena Vega was released on November the 13th. That is a month from the time of recording. Revolution.
She's back. She'll be available a couple weeks before Revolution.
I think that would help. Like that would make a bit of a splash. You've got a top match happening. Maybe you do have the Britt Baker, Hikaru Shida match or something like that. But I don't know.
Maybe you can throw together Zelina Vega versus Thunder Rosa. That would be really cool. Or maybe it's something. Maybe it's something for the NWA Championship, because we've seen it's not an AEW sanctioned championship. So, and maybe that could even be on the pre-show, because it's not an AEW championship. That's fine. We saw it with Allison Kay. They threw that, and that had even less. If you had Zelina Vega debut a couple weeks before Revolution, and she can just come in and she can basically say, I've been underutilized. I want to make a splash. Blah, blah, blah. She can just debut on the mic doing something like that. And then the next week, Serena Deeb has a match and she just attacks her. That sets up a match. It's very basic. It's simple stuff. But it'll be fine because, again, it's just an introduction. And she doesn't need to win that championship, obviously, because
No,
it's not really a decision that's in AEW's hands. But losing Serena Deeb isn't a bad thing. And then from there, she can then build, and she's immediately title challenger potentially, as long as you give her a little bit of build. Like in terms of name value, in terms of her talent, she'd definitely be one of the top people. So something I'd like to see for sure. Revolution
definitely,
could be a great place to have her first match.
definitely.
And it would show, like, I just want them to show me basically in the early parts of 2021, show me some kind of sign that you're actually changing and that you care and you're moving forward with the women's division. Because there's been a few times where I think, oh, okay, this is something, and it's been a false dawn. I want to see something like a proper splash and something like that. Whilst it wouldn't prove anything, it would give me that hope again, and then hopefully you build on it, and now you've got an extra person, an extra top contender, someone new as well, but someone that we're all familiar with anyway. It'd be great. But yeah, from one division to another, should we go to the tag division now, Kieran?
All right, boy, you start off.
Okay, because I have a very little. It's a thing. I don't know if it's a controversial opinion, or a hot take, if you will, but tag division since maybe All Out has been a little bit funny. Hasn't been bad, obviously, because there's been so much good stuff in it. Still, you'd say it's bad is a bit ridiculous, but I think they're holding off on a few things. Basically, is what I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that because. The FTR reign was rushed because they knew it wasn't going to be long, and FTR wanted to get a certain amount of matches in, so they did this weird open challenge thing that didn't really allow a lot of tag teams to progress. It was kind of just like, we're going to fight SCU this week, and it was fine. It was fun. We got some really good matches out of it, and it made FTR's title reign better than it would have been. Otherwise, it would have felt like they lost them really early, whereas as it was, it felt like they had already faced pretty much everyone, so it was all right. And then since Full Gear, we've seen a lot of the younger teams getting shots, and in particular in terms of Top Flight, that's something I've really enjoyed. But we're looking at it right. Lucha Brothers, one of the best tag teams in the world. Proud and Powerful, one of the best tag teams in the world. The Dark Order, and I'm talking about Stu Grace and Evil Uno. I think people would hesitate to say one of the best tag teams in the world necessarily, but they can put on like amazing matches when they've been given the chances and stuff. Those are three teams that I just really want to see pushed. I want to see Proud and Powerful somehow turn face because I like them too much to boo them. They're so good. Just imagine, I'm just putting together all the matches in my head. It's like, okay, Young Bucks versus maybe they drop the titles to Lucha Brothers, and then we can have a Lucha Brothers heel versus Proud and Powerful face team. And, that's, amazing. And then also Young Bucks, their matches with Dark Order are always incredible. That's one I wouldn't mind seeing be built for like Revolution, because don't necessarily, you can build some other big matches. You don't necessarily need the biggest match immediately, and then maybe build Lucha Brothers or something for Double or Nothing, and then it's massive. We've seen what they can do before, and it's like it's been enough time now where I want to see it again. It would have been 2 years since the last time by Double or Nothing, the last time they had a match that wasn't a ladder match. I think anyway, they might have had one on Dynamite here or there, but a big one, So there's so much. I just really hope they're doing. This is more of like I hope they're holding off on it to give that to us this year, because particularly in the case of Proud and Powerful, because I like Lucha Brothers as singles guys as well, so I wouldn't mind if they went in that direction. Proud and Powerful, I've not seen enough of them, but they've shown in their match against Young Bucks at the first Full Gear, against Best Friends in that street fight thing. They've shown in their stuff with Inner Circle that they've got the character and the comedy and stuff. They've shown themselves really likable. Santana cut a really good promo when he was coming up against the match against John Moxley, which made me root for him, which just shows the absolute just brilliant babyface potential that they do have. I mean, they're great heels as well, so I'm not going to complain if they remain heel, but I just really like them. But yeah, I just want to see that tag team division, because the last few months it's been good, but it's not been what it was, and it's not been that best division of all time kind of thing, which it was at one point. And I'm just hoping we can get back to that, because that's what was really exciting me about like Kenny and Hangman's reign. Was like, it just felt like everyone who fought them, maybe not in the bigger matches at least, they did have a couple of championship defenses where it was like, I think Private Party were just given one because they had to fill time because Moxley wasn't available for that second night of Fighter Fest that one time. So they just kind of threw that together, but that was okay. But for the most part, most of the big matches really felt like, oh, this is the number one contender now, and this is where we're going. Could they win? And a lot of the times it didn't actually feel like they could, because that's kind of the nature of AEW, where you kind of know they're not going to do that because it's too early or it just doesn't feel right, and that's fine. But it always felt like if they did, okay, I wouldn't mind seeing a best friends title reign. I wouldn't mind seeing the Lucha Brothers go from here. Part of that was because Hangman and Kenny losing the titles always had such dramatic value that you wanted to see it happen at some point, even if you didn't actually want to see it happen. But either way, the division was so good, and it's just taken a little back step in the last few months, and I just want to see it get back there, basically. That's a very long-winded way of going about my point.
I think I'm not as strong on this point as you. I don't think.
Here we go. Here we go.
Bloody hell. I think, although I do agree with you that it hasn't reached the heights that it previously once did in the last half a year ago or something or so like that. Let's just as a rough time. I do think it's because they served maybe a more passive role in other stories. So obviously Lucha Brothers, you've got, but the Butcher and Blade thing with Eddie Kingston and Pac now, so they're filling that role. Proud and Powerful, if they got the Inner Circle and they've got they're playing a role within the stable as a whole with MJF and Wardlow coming along. With Dark Order, you've got. I know you're not saying anything. I know. I get your point. I do get your point, but I'm less. And to a certain extent, I do agree. Because of like as I said, like the division has taken a step back. There's no question about that. But that's not to say like it's awful. It's just less good.
No. Yeah.
And of course, Dark Order, they've got the Hangman Page to think about, because they're obviously doing the recruitment specialist thing, and having a whale of a time in that regard as well. So, and then the other tag teams as well, we have been seeing tag team wrestling. So, obviously, include Best Friends and that. But obviously, we've seen a lot of Best Friends with Orange Cassidy and being by his side. And then, of course, you've got Top Flight. You've got the younger tag teams around. We saw Brian Pillman and Griff Garrison, the younger tag teams. They're doing their role as well. So, I do think, because they went in a more stable direction, very much more so than something we're used to, compared to the likes of someone like NXT, because it is, like with NXT, they've got, not many stables. That's not to say it's bad. It's just the direction, the way you structure your show. Whereas with AEW, it feels like everyone has their own affiliation somewhere. So much so that a guy like Lance Archer does stand out because he's just got a manager and it's just him on his lonesome doing stuff, and like John Moxley and stuff. You definitely, like, the guys who do play that lonely role do feel lonely because everyone else just has their mates in some regard. So, and I think that's where the tag division comes in, because obviously they've played their role in other areas. So yeah, I do agree. I do agree that, especially Proud and Powerful, especially because I can't help but think with Lucha Brothers in particular, in this bullet point here, I can't help but think like they're going to do some phenomenal stuff, like especially with Pac beside them, and if they are running with a three-man tag title division, like that, they're going to do wonders in that regards. And I think that'll help as well. Although I think three-man tag titles are really hard to keep relevant or make relevant in the first place, because it's kind of hard to root for three-man teams, I think, because obviously like you lose less of a personal thing with three men individual. Like you obviously,
the psychology is, it's much harder to like do in a way that connects. A lot of the time, 6-man matches exist for spot-based things, which I think basically that division would be like. It would be a competitive-based storytelling, which exists to provide basically exciting matches rather than spot based, but exciting matches.
Yeah.
And I would be okay with that if they were like the TNT trios titles, because I think that name rolls off the tongue. So it's almost on par with like a TNT championship, and it's more like it's a TV thing where it's if you want a banger to open the show, you got the Death Triangle versus um, uh, Dark Order with Hangman. So you've got John Silver and Reynolds and Hangman, for example. I mean, that'd be fun. I'd like that. And that could be for the title and something. It could give more, because again, a lot of AEW storytelling is competition based, and when you have these trios matches, sometimes they're like, okay, you can get one up here and there. It's momentum and all that. I can kind of buy into, but if you do a lot of them, which they do tend to do, a lot of multi-man tag matches, which are more than just 2-on-2. Sometimes I'm just sat there like, it doesn't really matter who wins this, does it? But then if there's a trios title and something, it just gives it a little bit more meaning. So I would like to see that as well. That's something we didn't put down, but Mio, I think it could be. When the idea was first floated about a year ago, I was like, no, 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 can't do that. I don't like trios titles, and I never have. But I think if you use them in the right way, and again, as a way to establish younger teams like Jurassic Express or whatever, allow them to get more experience, and so that they're not just sat there doing nothing, basically. I think that would be a good idea. And again, sometimes you can use it for a story purpose. Sometimes it's Jurassic Express are holding titles, and that's nice because they're a young tag team. I don't actually know how old Luchasaurus is, but the other two guys are young, and in an experienced tag team, let's say, and it can help them build. So I think that'd be a great thing to add to the tag division, is a trios division as well. And
Yeah.
again, maybe you see Lucha Brothers go with Pac into that. I really don't want to see that, because I really want to see Pac in singles action, to be honest. And I think there's enough trios teams elsewhere. My dream, this is one thing I really want, is at one point Lucha Brothers have the tag team titles. Pac has got the TNT championship, and just because I think the main title is a bit clogged up for now. Wow, Death Triangle are on top. They're amazing because I like them and I want to see them do well. But that's not an objective view. That's just I like them.
But and of course you could work that into your stories as well. So I don't know, maybe if it was a 3-man tag, and just I'm gonna bring this example because it's relevant. It's what's happening right now. But maybe Proud and Powerful, maybe they have MJF near them or something like that. I don't know, or maybe someone like a Wardlow, proving his worth. Let's go for these 3-man. You can then use the titles as a way for the stories that you have. Because and that kind of in a way makes them relevant in a way, because it's gonna struggle. It is hard, honestly. Like we watched New Japan for a while, like a little while now. Definitely a year now, but a year and a bit. We never cared about the 3-man titles, but that's also to also add on top of that
Until
point.
Yoshihashi held them.
Oh yeah. But that's also because they haven't given us a reason to care for them. And maybe if AEW do that, and they've given us a reason to care about tag divisions in general, because there was a time where there was very little of that going on, because a certain millionaire, billionaire bloke who we all talk about doesn't care for tag team wrestling, So maybe they can give us a reason to. Just so in 2021.
I think on that Proud and Powerful point, imagine if there was like a little tournament set up to crown the first champions being crowned at Revolution. And the final is, let's just say it's Hangman and Dark Order, because I like Hangman and John Silver together, versus Proud and Powerful and MGF. And MGF's been put in here because there's a slight problem between Proud and Powerful, and obviously the bigger problems with Sammy Guevara, but Proud and Powerful are the ones who MJF kind of needs to win over and something.
Yeah.
And imagine then if that's the final, and MJF's the one who costs the team. Proud and Powerful then get annoyed with him, and that causes an extra rift within that storyline. I'm not saying necessarily do that, but that could be a very interesting team. He doesn't necessarily even need to get pinned, but he can just do something stupid or selfish that costs the team. And, maybe ultimately it's because MJF doesn't value, and it wouldn't be burying tag team wrestling or the trios titles because this is MJF's character, but he cares about his own glory and stuff. And he wants to achieve, singles goals. He doesn't really care about working with others because that's the kind of character he is. He wants to control others. He doesn't want to work with them. And so maybe it's a breakdown in team, but Proud and Powerful basically get annoyed. And then they turn face, and then they get a tag title run after beating the Lucha Brothers at All Out. Yes. Booked it.
But it's
anyway,
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's just
the
little things.
Possibilities are there, and it's just as long as you've got possibilities, you've got things to do. That's what possibility means. And then you've got a reason for me to invest, basically. So that's another way you could shake up that tag division.
Okay, and then we've got a final point, which I'm interested to see what you've got to say about this, because I would personally say that, I don't know, in terms of the grand wrestling landscape, I think they're one of the better ones, but storytelling / booking.
They're the best one, but the question of the video is how can AEW improve, and you can always improve. It's storytelling / booking, kind of. So they're technically different things, but thrown in together. First one is I want them to kind of try to stray away from tropes as much as possible. So things we see all the time, and in recent months they've started doing this a lot. So it's attacking after the match. It's I get it. I get why someone would do that. I just don't want to see it all the time. Find different ways of doing something. It's just a trope and it's just I want to fight you. You want to fight me. It's become too NXT-ish at times. And this latest episode, this is one of the reasons I really didn't like it. I think we saw a couple of people attack from behind. A couple of the finish were the same, where it's that's the obvious thing to do. Where it's if you're having Matt Hardy and Private Party win that match, the obvious thing to do is have Matt Hardy kind of steal the pin. And then MJF did it later in the night as well, and it's just you're not being smart. You're doing a lot of similar things, and they've started doing a lot of similar things basically on the same night, and it just makes me realize, you're not as creative as you could be, and as you used to be as well, because there was a time where you rarely see any of this kind of stuff. The women's division as well, it exists on trope-based storytelling. Thunder Rosa versus what's her face, Britt Baker aside, even though that's birthed out of a problem, but I wouldn't say it's burst out of conflict rather than a trope. It was slightly tropey, but it's fine. It was fine. But for the most part, it's just really based on tropes. So those things I just want to see removed. And the other point was character and motivation focused storytelling, which again, for the most part, AEW does. Even if someone hasn't got a grand motivation, it's just a win-loss record, and that's fine. That is just something which it ticks over when you haven't got anything huge going on. And also, it can also be the difference in stakes. So, if someone's on a losing streak, for example, you saw this on Dark, good storytelling taking place on Dark, but a losing streak can also be a good story. So they have done it in really good ways. But things like that Eddie Kingston Pac stuff, it's just all I want to fight you. And it's not really based on anything tangible. It's just, I know Eddie Kingston took the Lucha Brothers, and then Pac returned, and then he wanted Death Triangle back. Why hasn't Pac questioned why they just left? Because they're just going to sweep that under the carpet because it's not convenient to them. And then Lance Archer loses a big match, and he doesn't do anything in retaliation, even though his character would, because it's convenient for what the company want. And AEW don't do it anywhere near as much as NXT, but they do it enough still to annoy me. And so that's just something I'd like to see them improve on. If you haven't got anything for someone, just look at where their character is and think, what would they do here? They've just lost a big match. How does this character react? Maybe someone like Hangman reacts by taking a few weeks off because, for all we know, you don't need to explain it, but for all we know, he's just drinking a bit too much. And people backstage have just said, look, you're not in the fit state to wrestle at the moment, so you're not going to be in a match. Someone like Lance Archer doesn't take a few weeks off. If he has a big loss, I don't really see where the logic comes. But besides Jake Roberts saying, look, you've got to take some time, we've got to refocus. But Lance isn't a guy who needs to focus. He's bigger than everyone. He just beats the crap out of them. Like, so it's just like these kind of things. And I just want to see more of a thing like, what would he do? Because Lance doesn't need to go out and attack John Moxley, the world champion, the next week because he lost the TNT Championship match. And even if it's on Dark, just see him just go and like take his frustration out because it's somewhere where he won't be punished as much, and he just needs to get that out of his system. That's fine as long as it's happening. It's my fault if I'm then not watching it. But if he just disappears, that was the one that really annoyed me from the year. So that's why I've used it a couple of times. If Brody Lee wasn't injured right now, it would be a similar thing, but he's injured, so it's kind of out of their hands, you know. But there's just a few things where I just want them. It's mostly the women's division, but I just want them to just sit there and think, what would this character do? And then do that. Because it is different for everyone. Moxley's not been here now since he lost the championship, and I'm not convinced that he's someone who just stays silent after a loss like he had. If he turns up in Wrestle Kingdom, then we know the reason why that's happened, but even then, could have pre-recorded a promo or something, like just to explain something. And I get New Japan might want everything to be a surprise. He didn't say, I'm going to Japan, but just say, Moxley say, look, I'm going to take some time off. I've got a pregnant wife, blah, blah, blah. I've got other business to deal with. I've not forgotten Kenny. And that gives us something to just be like, oh, he's coming back. Winter is coming and all that. So it's just that basically. It's a perfectionist thing I mean, it has got worse on recent weeks. I'd say like it's the last couple of weeks it's been worse than it should be, but I think that is for reasons that they are building for other stuff, and it'll be fine in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time once it picks up again. I would have forgotten all about weeks like this, but yeah, it's here and there. It is a perfectionist thing, but if I want them to improve, that's one of the bigger things because it's just here and there. They just do things that I'm just like, ah. What about yourself? Do you agree or disagree?
I agree with with the talent that are hovering in the mid card. So
Yeah.
Recently talked about NXT. Like we did that video less than an hour ago. We finished it up, and we were talking about AEW and how it does long term. You know, it does do it. Although it doesn't do it across the board, it's shown that it can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nor do I expect it to
And
across the
even
board.
if
I know that wouldn't work.
I just want to say quickly, even if someone is hovering, they might still have a long-term story which is just sitting there, you know.
Yeah.
So that's another good thing about AEW.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you always get a sense of direction. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Which when you're tuning in on a weekly basis, it's always nice to see. But I think it's definitely for the guys in the mid cards. Because like the guys, like whether that be lower or upper, so like guys like Lance Archer, you know, mid, upper, you know, like he tends to float there. You know, there was that time. He's less in that role now, which is nice to see. But I remember when there was a time where he was sitting in the crowd with Jake the Snake, and like using your logic. Okay, so you know what would Lance Archer do in this situation? He wouldn't just sit there and just watch things take place right in front of him. You know, especially. I mean, it would be absolutely ridiculous but brilliant if, like, a meaningless, like, maybe it was a bit of, like, a meaningless match had happened, but maybe it was purposefully meaningless because the grander story was Lance Archer coming in and just being fed up with this at this particular time and just taking it out on the people in the ring, you know? Or maybe it was
everybody
just, like,
dies.
an exhibition, you know? Like, that's within the realms of the character then, and that's okay to do a little bit. Like, you're not really doing a match because you could do an angle like that and have like a minute of action and then him take it out, you know, especially if I don't know, they do a spot, I don't know, say it's a high flyer and then you go into the audience and it hits Lance Archer and he's like, you know what, I don't need to see this shit, and then he like, just understanding your character. That's just an example, understanding your mid-level characters, and just think, like you said, take a step back and think, okay, what would that person in that particular instance, in that particular situation, what would they do? I think that's really good. And Lance Archer is definitely one that does need that. And when they've got it right, they've got it really right. So much so that it's meme worthy. Like, you know, like how great and how much people get behind it, whether that be throwing people over roofs and ceilings, and not roofs, but ceilings, whether that be you know, the segment early on when it was a wrestling ring and he was taking out just a group of people or
Yeah.
in a backyard, with Jake the Snake watching on, laughing and stuff like that. Early days within his
Mm.
character. He's I'm just using him as an example because, of course, he's a very easy example to make, but this applies to many people.
Yeah.
And to be honest, right, I think it'd be very hard to do it for every single person. It would be
It's near
incredibly
impossible. Yeah.
yeah. But to see more of that, especially for your upper mid-level characters and
Mm.
the people that are feasible enough to win, say, the World Championship one day or the TNT Championship, I think maybe have that
Yeah.
level of thinking for those people would
Yeah.
go a long way.
I think, yeah, because like if you see Brody Lee attack John Moxley and then he gets a world title shot, more or less because of that, he did have a few jobber wins under his belt as well. But he wasn't like a convincing contender in terms of the rankings. Even though I think they did rank him number one, it was kind of fraudulent because they were trying to like just stack his wins up against like randoms basically. You don't see Scorpio Sky get ranked number one when he's beating jobbers on Dark. Let's just put it like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, but if you see Brody Lee get a championship shot like that, what's to stop um, uh, Peter Avalon attacking Kenny Omega and saying he wants a championship shot? Obviously, you're not going to do that. There's just a slight logic hole you just have to have in the world of wrestling where it's like, look, yes, you can get championship shots this way, and yes, theoretically anyone could do it. Blah blah blah. Or so, just for example, like things like that, there are going to be places where it's just like a guy like Peter Avalon, he just has to know his place on Dark, even if in real life, a guy like that with a massive ego as his character does, you probably think, oh, I could take on the world champion. And like, if it was a real sport, you might see someone stupid enough to do that. And that's why in like UFC or boxing or anything like that, that's the reason they've got rankings. I mean, if someone does something really silly and they want to put a match together, they still will. But for the most part, that's why they have rankings, and AW does have rankings, but they kind of skirt the rules sometimes, and that is fine. So you don't necessarily have to just be like, okay, what would this guy do? Well, I think Peter Avalon will go and attack John Moxley because he wants a world champion shot. Everyone wants a world championship shot. Like, if you wanted to tell that story, sure, go ahead and do it. I mean, obviously, he'd get his head kicked off, and that would be kind of the moral of the story. But like, you don't need to necessarily go to like such a ridiculous length where everyone is doing exactly as they should. Because also you can have the thing like, I don't mind if Lance Archer is sitting in the crowd and the commentators are like, he's watching on, he's biding his time, he's doing that. As long as he actually does bide his time, because one day I want to see him jump out of the crowd and beat the shit out of someone, not necessarily come from the back and do the same thing. Because then what's the point in him sitting in the crowd? We could have just, you're building something there, which then and you're telling me, oh, he's biding his time. It's because you got nothing for him. But I know why he's sat there. It's because you don't want us to forget about him because you want to do something and then you end up not doing it. And yeah, I mean, Lance Archer is the one that's really annoyed me because I think his character is actually really easy to book, but they go through like really good ways of building him up, and then after they build him up and he loses, it's like, okay, where now? And he's lost two big matches this year, in the World Championship shot and the TNT Championship shot. And in between that, he didn't really do a lot. I mean, we were talking about this. He won a Battle Royal to get a championship shot, which is okay in itself. But was there any need for him not to be wrestling squash matches here and there, even if it's on Dark and stuff? And he did have a couple on Dark. But like, was there any? If you're going to build him to a world championship shot, I want to see a world championship contender most weeks. And that's anyone on that roster, anyone lower in the card, even mid card guys. It's an easy way to give someone a loss if you want to give them a loss so that they're not climbing the rankings too high, but then they can still have impressive performances, have a really good babyface performance against him, but still end up ultimately losing. It's a really easy character to book, and the fact they haven't is just like, oh, just do better with stuff like that. I understand he didn't really fit any of their plans, and he kind of just came in. But yeah, it's just that's just one example. There are a few others. It's nowhere near as bad as in other companies, though. Like you said, like I understand, like in terms of wrestling, I've pretty much got to accept that this is more or less as good as we're going to get. So it is what it is. But I just hope that we'd see a little bit more focus towards some stories with a little bit more depth and things where I'm like, yes, that character would do that. That's all I need, you know.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
I think it's what can sometimes be frustrating, I guess, and especially for someone in, at least in your case, someone who has gone ahead and studied these kind of things, is that it's relatively simple to go out and achieve and sort out, and you at the end of the day, your company's only going to benefit from it. You know, if you create well-established characters and do unique stories with
yeah,
those characters and push on forth with that mindset, like that's it. You know, it
yeah.
everyone's a winner. We're winners for seeing more developed and interesting characters, and then you're going to be winners because people are going to be more invested. You know, and especially
I'm
with your
gonna.
mid-level talent. Go on.
I was going to say I'm going to pay NXT a compliment because I think the perfect example of what I'm kind of trying to speak about is something so unique that it just fit only those two characters and still told a really good story, but in a really simple, minimalistic way. Was Nonce Dream, as we'll refer to him, versus Aleister Black on a takeover. I think it was a War Games a few years ago, maybe 2017, might have been 2018. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Um,
We're all aware.
but it was
Anyone who
just
knows.
about
Yeah.
yeah, it was just about Aleister Black saying his name. Velveteen Dream's a character who's egotistical enough, and apparently a person who's egotistical enough where that would actually bother him. And Aleister Black is the kind of guy who's just like he was kind of treading the line between heel and face, and like that was a sign of respect, and it was about earning his respect. And ultimately, Nonce managed to earn his respect. They flushed it down the toilet a couple of years later. But you know that was a perfect example in terms of storytelling of like two guys who, at the time, you know, we were all wanting Aleister Black to push on. You know, NXT champion. He's so good, amazing. And it was another example of why he's so good and amazing. And they got it's even more frustrating seeing how they book that character on WWE main roster now because it's so simple. It really is actually so simple. You just have to think, what would his character do? What you know, what does someone want from beating him? And it's all it is combining those. Does that person succeed? No. If not, what are they going to get? Well, he still earned his respect. He didn't get the win, but he earned his respect, and that's a way of putting him over, and it's a way of Nonce team still comes out of it a bit stronger, whereas Aleister Black, you know, gets the win, continues to be the absolute badass he was. And like characters like that, him, Lance Archer, anyone with like a bit of like where it's basically just about beating the shit out of someone, actually really easy to book. It's just about finding the ways to do it and just being a bit creative with it. So, yeah. Oh,
I
Aleister
like
Black,
that
please come to
example.
AEW.
That's a
That's got me
really
down.
no, that's a really good example, and it is like all, you know, Velveteen Dream aside, and all that, the obvious things that you've got to mention in that regard. Like, it's a really really clear and well made example, and I'm kind of glad it's an NXT example because on the NXT video we went in ahead and used AEW everywhere, so we've used it in NXT in a
Yeah.
positive manner here as well, to balance things out again. But yeah, we've been going on for about the better part of an hour now, so and
Fucking hell.
which I
We
know
can't
which
help ourselves, can we?
we can't help ourselves is because, you know, like at the very, we just care a bit, you know, we just care to see these things.
We're fucking not.
And I hate to sound like JD, like, because at the end of the day, like, JD's a completely different level because he'll just come up with absurd and all these things that I just, personally for me, not to my taste. But like, looking at what they've done well, because trust me, they will come a video, and I will be excited to do it one day. We will just praise the hell out of what AEW have accomplished. I mean, look at Kenny Omega video we've done recently, and that's AEW have had a part to play in that as well. You know, like they've done some really fantastic stuff, and there's a reason why this video will, like, don't know the name for it, but it's along the level of how can they improve. It's not how can they be
Yeah.
good again. How can they entice us back? You know, it's like we acknowledge and we personally believe that it's good to great, if not
Yeah.
fantastic. You know, it's just like there are things that need attention right away. Women's division. There are things that we'd like to see more of. The tag division, and there are things that we think, you know, if you just pay more attention to this, you'll thank yourselves, like storytelling and booking, with particularly with the mid
Yeah.
card for my personal taste. So
I think
yeah,
also when you come to like episodes like the most recent one we had, where it is a bit weaker and there's like a lot of stories there which aren't the main stories being highlighted. If you've had that work go into them, then an episode like that goes from being it's a bit here and there to being that was still really good, even though like John Moxley wasn't on it, even though the Young Bucks barely did anything, and even though all this and that, it was still really good. And that's kind of like, because this is where like those little creeping things come in every now and then. You'll then have a weak episode, and if that's the one episode where the Sting advertisement didn't exactly work on this week's episode of Dynamite, but if it had, and you'd had like 1 million people tuning in as you did the week before, and which also wasn't the strongest week, maybe a lot of those people just said, I keep giving this AEW thing a chance, but like I'm not really seeing what's great here. Whereas if you've got good stuff constantly going on, and even your lower card stuff and your mid card stuff is really good, and you're paying enough attention to detail to it, then it'll all make sense, and it'd be easier to invest in someone like Lance Archer, let's say, because that's the example we're given all day.
Yeah, exactly. So with that little point, we leave you here. Thank you very much for joining us in this little chat about AEW and how they can improve for 2021. As always, at the end of these videos, I always ask you, let us know if we've missed anything. Simple as. Let us know if you believe we've missed anything regarding AEW and how they can improve for the next year, and how, let's make it a positive environment. What have they done well? What is it they're saying in Britain? Like 2 stars and a wish. They did 2 great things. This is a thing, I wish they'd do better. Whatever it may be. I don't get it. Like, it's just really interesting to see other people's perspectives in regards to this as well, because I do think sometimes me and you are in our own little vacuum sometimes on our streams, and we're just like, they could do this better, could do this better. And hearing some other opinions is always a bit of fresh air as well. So let us know. You can expect that, obviously, it's an AEW video here, so if you watch it of course, provided you clicked on this video, we do AEW live streams every Wednesday. When the show is on, we always start half an hour before it starts. So in the Twitch link, will be in the description. So if you're interested in joining us for those watch-alongs, then come along. We just have a laugh.
Yeah.
We have a chat. We'll, especially upcoming, we'll go through the show that we're about to watch, and we'll go ahead and watch it. We'll have a laugh. We'll enjoy it. We might criticize it midway through. Who knows? You get what you're given with AEW, pretty much, as is anything with wrestling. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.